Do you want to transform the way your company tracks and organizes data? Ready for a serious upgrade to your day-to-day workflows? If your data isn't helping you get work done, you need to check out Airtable. Airtable is a powerful tool that combines the simplicity of a spreadsheet with the functionality of a database. With Airtable, you can organize your data in a way that makes sense to you and create customized workflows to automate repetitive tasks and streamline your processes. Whether you're a freelancer, a small business owner, or part of a large organization, Airtable has something to offer. In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started with Airtable today. Hi, I'm Tom from XRay.tech, the workflow company. At XRay, we use no-code and low-code tools like Airtable to help companies automate and optimize their workflows. If you'd like to see more videos about automation, productivity every single week, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. In this beginner's guide, we'll cover the basics of using Airtable, from creating your first table to adding automations and creating interfaces. By the end of this two-part guide, you'll have a solid understanding of how to use Airtable to manage your data and improve your workflows. First, I'll explain what Airtable is and what sets it apart from apps like Google Sheets, Excel, Monday.com, and Asana. Next, I'll show you what you'll see when you first open up Airtable, and I'll quickly explain how bases, tables, and views are structured, so you'll understand everything you're looking at. Then, I'll walk you through the process of setting up your first base and table in Airtable. We'll keep things very simple to start, but as we go, I'll demonstrate some of Airtable's key features for viewing, sorting, and utilizing your data. Then, we'll wrap up part 1 of the guide with a look at some useful formulas and functions that you can add to your tables. In video number 2, we'll cover linked records, customizable filters and views, powerful no-code automations, and building your own custom interfaces for your data. If you'd like to skip ahead to any of these topics, check the description down below for a full list of chapters. Now let's get started. First, for those who might not be familiar, what is Airtable? Airtable is a flexible database app. You can use Airtable to organize, filter, and sort your data, run calculations, and pretty much do anything else you could do in a spreadsheet app like Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. However, Airtable also includes several unique features that make it an ideal no-code or low-code database for you and your company. By leveraging these features, you can use Airtable to do a lot more than just storing and managing your data. You can even use Airtable to build your own custom systems for task and project management, content creation pipelines, and managing your network like a CRM. You can even use it to power no-code and low-code automations to simplify and supercharge your workflows in other applications. This gives Airtable the flexibility to replace apps like Monday.com, Asana, HubSpot, and more. I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the key features that set Airtable apart. Then, I'll take you through the process of creating an Airtable base step by step so you can see the features in action firsthand. By applying filters and choosing an appropriate view type, you can control the data you see and control how it's displayed. You can then share a specific view with clients or other collaborators to ensure that they only see the data that you want them to see. And if you want to start automating your work with no-code and low-code tools, you can easily set up automations that run whenever a record enters a specific view. This is just scratching the surface of what you can do with filters and views, and we'll go into a lot more detail later on. Next, let's quickly talk about linked records. Linked records let you create associations between records in two different tables. This can be a great way to associate each client with a project manager on your team or an item in your customer's order with a predefined product in your inventory. Then, with lookup fields, you can automatically include additional data from the associated records. By simply adding a linked project manager to your client, you can also instantly see the PM's email address and phone number. Or by adding a linked product to a customer's order, you can instantly see the price and description of the product. Linked records and their lookup fields let you see the same data in multiple places without the manual effort and errors that come with duplicating the data yourself. Linked records are a great example of the kind of simple, out-of-the-box features that Airtable offers, which would require formulas to replicate in something like Google Sheets or Excel. Airtable integrates neatly with third-party automation providers like Zapier, Make, Workato, and N8N, and it includes a decent set of native automation functionality itself. With features like record IDs, filters, views, and more, Airtable is an ideal database app for no-code and low-code builders. Next, I'm going to walk you through building your first base, and I'll show you how to use all these features together and start building automations. First, let's take a look at Airtable's basic layout. There's nothing too complicated here, but it can be helpful to know what all these menu items are for. When you first open up Airtable, you have one default workspace called My Workspace. You can see three options here for creating your first base: start from scratch, quickly upload, and start with templates. We'll get back to these in a moment. First, let's take a quick look at the other menu options we see on the Airtable home screen. With templates, you can browse a library of pre-made layouts that you can use to quickly build your Airtable bases. Templates are a great time saver, but I'd recommend starting from scratch first so you can develop an understanding of how Airtable really works. If you click on Marketplace, you can explore a variety of free and paid extensions. Extensions are essentially add-ons that extend the functionality of your Airtable bases. Extensions can be extremely useful tools, but we won't really be covering them in this beginner's guide. For newcomers, there's more than enough to explore with Airtable's native features alone. Under Universe, you can find a bunch of case studies and other articles exploring how you can use Airtable in hundreds of different industries and use cases. There are lots of great resources you can explore later, but for now, let's focus on setting up your first base and table. As you're getting started with Airtable, it's important to know how everything is structured so you can build a database that suits your unique needs. Airtable follows a simple hierarchy of workspaces, bases, and tables. A workspace is essentially a folder for your bases. If you click on Create a Workspace, you can add a new workspace to your account. When you click on View All Workspaces, you'll see your new workspace right alongside the default space created by Airtable. A base is a database that can hold multiple tables, and a table is where you can store individual records. Each individual record can contain several fields displayed as separate columns, and each field can have its own unique type. We'll explore field types in depth later on. For now, let's create a base in our new workspace. When you create a new base, Airtable will automatically add a new table called Table 1, with a few default fields and 3 blank records. You'll see the same setup every time you create a new table. Airtable will provide fields for name, notes, assignee, and status. You can edit these fields, delete them, or add more. For our example, we'll turn this base into a team directory. Follow along to explore some of Airtable's field types and other features. This first field on the left, labeled Name by default, is called the primary field. It's the field that is used to identify each record. As a general best practice, we at XRay like to populate the primary field with a simple formula, but we'll get back to that later. We'll edit the rest of our fields first. Instead of this Notes field, we want a First Name field. You can click on the arrow next to any field name to edit that field. You could also just double click. This will let you access a menu where you can change the field's name and type. We'll change the type to single line text. We'll change the name to First Name, and we'll click Save to save our changes. Then we'll do the exact same thing to change the assignee field into a last name field. Then we'll change the status field into an email address field. When you choose the email field type, any email address entered will be formatted as a mail to link, so you can start composing an email just by clicking on the address. Choosing an appropriate field type for your data in Airtable can add a lot of convenient features to your base. Now we'll need some new fields for phone number, department, start date, and notes. To add a new field, just click on the plus sign at the right of all your current fields. Then choose the name and type of the field. We'll add a phone number field with the phone number type. Then we'll add a single select field for department. With a single select field, you can add a list of pre-configured options for your users to choose whenever they add or edit a record. We'll add options for a few key departments like engineering, design, HR, accounting, and marketing. You can also change the color of any of these fields by just clicking on the color and picking one that you'd like to use. You can also set the default option for any new record, but we'll leave this blank for now. Note that Airtable also has a multi-select field that works in largely the same way, but will allow you to choose multiple options for the same record. Next, we'll add a start date field with the date type. And finally, we'll add a notes field with the long text type. We'll quickly fill in information for this record so we have some data to work with. Now, let's go back to the primary field. We'll change the field type to formula and enter a simple formula here that will display each team member's full name. We'll start by typing concat, which will pull up the concatenate function. We can just click on that function to insert it. The concatenate formula will combine or concatenate multiple strings of text. Each separate piece of text that you want to combine needs to be separated with a comma. We'll search for the last name field, select it from the list, add a comma, and then add the first name field. Then we'll save the field. This formula works, but note that it smushes the last name and the first name together. That's because the concatenate formula will only include any text or data that we explicitly enter into it. We need to add another piece of text into the concatenate formula to separate these two strings. We'll edit the formula and add a comma and a space to give the field better formatting. Now it looks better. Alternatively, you can also combine fields and text by using an ampersand between each item, like this. Functionally, it's the same thing as the concatenate formula, so you can use whichever you prefer. But why go through all that trouble? Why not just enter the full name manually? Using the formula field as the primary field ensures that all of your records are named consistently. For a directory like this, you don't want to have some people labeled as Smith John while others are Jane Doe. And if you want to change how each record is labeled, you can just change the formula once instead of updating every single record individually. For instance, we can change this formula to put the surname last. And instantly, all of our records use the exact same format for the name. First name, first, last name, last. And we can change it right back. Making these changes manually for every record could take hours with a large database. So using formula fields can be a huge time saver if you want something formatted in a particular way. Just a note, if you're using Airtable for automation with providers like Zapier, another best practice here is to add a specific emoji to any formula field. This will let you identify this field as a formula field when you're working in an automation provider like Zapier. While Airtable will prevent you from entering data directly into formula fields, third-party apps like Zapier will often let you try to enter data directly into them. Using an emoji is a simple way to remind yourself to leave these fields blank when you're building in Zapier. Just a quick aside for any automators out there, let's get back to Airtable. Now that we have all our fields configured, this is a decent table to get started with, but we need to add some more data to really explore Airtable's features. Let's quickly add some existing data by importing a CSV. We'll click on the arrow next to the table's name. Scroll down for the first option that says Import Data and select CSV from the menu. We'll choose the file we want to import and click Upload. If you want to create some mock data to work with while you're exploring Airtable, I'd recommend checking out Mockaroo. That's what we use to instantly generate the mock data in our CSV. When you import a CSV, Airtable will try to automatically map each field in the CSV to an appropriate field in the table, but it will often make some mistakes or even just skip the fields. Don't worry though, you can map these fields manually in the Adjust Your Import section. Just select the fields in your CSV that match each field in your Airtable base. Note that we can't map anything to the formula field. That field will be populated automatically by the formula we entered before. Since our CSV included a title for each column, you can see the first entry is just a record that says first name, last name, and so on. That's not something we really need in our database. To exclude that row, we can just click on the Other Settings and choose Exclude First Row in Import. Now that all our fields are matched up, we can just click on Import to add the data to Airtable. And we can see the formula field instantly populates as all the records are added. Next, let's take a look at a couple of simple features that immediately make Airtable more accessible. Right now, like any spreadsheet, all of this data is not especially easy for a person to read. It's just row after row of data. But by sorting or grouping this table, we can instantly make it easier to parse. We'll click on Group and Group by Department. Now, all of the records are split into visually distinct groups for each department listed in the Departments field. This makes it much easier to scan the data and to find the entry we want. To add even more organization, let's add a sort and sort by last name in alphabetical order. Now, every record is sorted alphabetically within each group. Anyone can look up a team member in the directory in seconds, and it just took a few clicks. We can even save these different sorts and groupings as unique views within this table, but we'll dive into that a bit later. Now that we have the basics in place, let's go further and start exploring some of Airtable's more powerful features. First, let's go into some more depth with formula fields. Formula fields automatically generate the contents of a given field by running a simple calculation. I already showed you how to use a simple concatenate formula for our name field, but there's so much more that you can do with Airtable formulas. If you're familiar with writing formulas in other spreadsheet apps, Airtable formulas will be very familiar and easy to use. But if you don't have any experience with formulas in other software, don't worry. Airtable uses a simple syntax that's easy to learn. Just explore their formula field reference guide for more info. You can find it in the resources board linked down below. Formula fields are useful in countless different contexts. You may want to create a due date field that's 3 weeks after the start date field. Or you may want to simply reformat some data to capitalize names, convert dates to a specific format, or concatenate several fields together like we did earlier. There are hundreds of formulas for thousands of use cases, so we obviously can't cover them all in this video. If there's any specific formulas you'd like us to cover in depth on this channel, just leave a comment down below and we'll see what we can do. But for now, I'll give you a few quick examples to help you get started with Airtable formulas. One very simple but extremely useful formula will let you retrieve and display the unique ID for every record. Just add a new formula field and enter record_ID followed by a set of parentheses. We'll name the field RecordID and save it. Now, every record displays its unique ID, which will make it easy to find, update, or delete any record with an automation. RecordID is by far one of the most useful formulas because it will let you easily and accurately reference the record ID in an automation platform like Zapier and Make. If you don't want to show this field all the time, you can just click on the arrow next to the field name and select Hide Field. That will hide the field in this view, but it won't delete it. As a helpful reminder, Airtable lets us know that we have one field hidden in this view. Adding the record ID is very simple, but most Airtable formulas will require a little more information. You'll usually need to provide 2 or more pieces of data called arguments to have the function run properly. For example, let's take a look at formatting dates with an Airtable formula. When you're working with an automation or other no-code tools, you often end up with dates that are pretty difficult for a human to quickly read. For instance, in the ugly date field, I've added the kind of date time that Zapier often produces. It includes the time and time zone in a single long chain of characters. Let's add a new formula field to reformat this into something that's a bit easier to read. We'll call the field Date Formatted and choose Formula as the field type. For the formula, we'll just enter DateTime format. Once I start typing date, you'll notice a list of options appears. Even if you don't know the exact name of the function you want to use, you can just search for a relevant keyword and it should appear. I'll click on the DateTime format function to insert it into our formula. When you hover over a function in Airtable, a helpful tooltip will explain everything you need to enter into your function. The first argument needs to be the date that we want to reformat, so we'll use the ugly date field. We'll add a comma, then for the next argument, we'll just need to specify the format we'd like to use. We just want to have the month, day, and year with 2 digits each, all separated by hyphens. So we'll enter mm-dd-yy in quotes. We'll close out the formula with another parenthesis and save the field. Now we can see the reformatted date in the date formatted field. All of these records say error because the ugly date field is empty. There's nothing to reformat, and that's what's causing the error. Once we enter the date into the ugly date field for another record, the date formatted field is populated correctly. Alternatively, if you want to ensure that every record looks nicer whether there's a date provided or not, you could use a simple if statement instead. With an if statement, you can use a different formula when certain conditions are met. To construct an if statement, you need 3 arguments. First, you need the logical condition that the formula needs to assess. So, in this case, we want the formula to determine if there is any content in the ugly date field. We can do this by simply entering the ugly date field. The next argument is what the formula should do if the condition is true. In our case, that will simply be the datetime formula we already entered. So we'll add a comma after that formula and enter our final argument, the formula that should run if the condition is false. In that case, we just want the field to say no date provided. Now we'll close out this statement with a parenthesis and save it. Now, every record with an empty ugly date field just says no date provided in the date formatted field. This is a lot better than the ugly # error we saw before. Using formulas in Airtable can be a convenient way to format your data, run calculations, and retrieve vital information automatically. Try exploring Airtable's formulas on your own to discover ways you can turn your spreadsheets into a dynamic database. We've included these formulas we've written today inside the resources board in the description down below. With some specialized field types and a couple formulas, you should be well on your way to discovering what Airtable has to offer. In the second part of this guide, we're going to go even further and cover linked records, filters and views, workflow automation, and customizable interfaces. If you've enjoyed this video, prove you're human and like and subscribe for more automation tips every single week. If you'd like to learn more about no-code and low-code automation, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and you can find all of our content on our website at xray.tech. You can find all these links in the resources board down below, and as always, don't forget, keep the flow.